Chapter 1. The Flames of Rejection. The smoke burned my lungs before the flames ever touched my skin. I stood at the center of the stone circle, hands bound behind my back with silver-threaded rope that seared into my wrists. The pack surrounded me. Faces I'd known my entire life, now twisted with contempt and righteousness. My father stood among them, his expression carved from granite, refusing to meet my eyes. Nora Ashwood, Elder Cassius intoned, his voice carrying across the clearing like a funeral bell. You have been found guilty of the most grievous crime an Omega can commit. You refused your bonding. You denied your Alpha's claim. I lifted my chin, even as my knees trembled. He wasn't my mate. The bond was a lie. Gasps rippled through the crowd. My former best friend Lydia actually spat on the ground. She'd been so quick to take my place in Marcus's bed after my rejection. Silence. Cassius raised his gnarled hand. You were chosen by Alpha Marcus. That is bond enough. Your refusal has brought shame upon the Ashwood line and weakness to our pack structure. The old laws are clear. Rejection without the mark of a true mate is treason. Behind him, Marcus stood with his arms crossed, his handsome face smug with satisfaction. 3 months ago, I'd thought I loved him. I'd believed his promises, his touches, his whispered words about our future. Then I'd discovered the truth. He'd already claimed 2 other Omegas in secret, draining their life force to strengthen his own power. One of them had died. The other had gone mad. When I'd confronted him, he'd laughed. Called me foolish for thinking I was special. I'd run that night. I should have kept running. The burning trial will prove your worth, Cassius continued. If you survive until dawn, the moon goddess herself will have declared you innocent. If you do not, he smiled, showing yellow teeth, then justice will be served. They'd built the pyre carefully, a circle of ash wood soaked in oil, with a single post at the center where I would be chained. The flames would start small, creeping inward slowly. I would have hours to burn, hours to scream. No one had survived a burning trial in over a century. 2 guards dragged me forward. I didn't fight. What would be the point? I had no wolf. I'd never shifted, never felt the call of the moon. Just another weakness, another reason the pack had always looked at me with pity or disdain. Omega. Wolfless. Unwanted. They chained me to the post, the metal collar clicking shut around my throat. Marcus approached, and I finally allowed myself to spit at his feet. You'll regret this, I whispered. He leaned close, his breath hot against my ear. No, little Omega. You'll just be ash by morning. Forgotten. He stepped back, nodded to Cassius, and the elder threw the first torch. The flames caught instantly, a wall of heat and light that made the crowd step back. I could see their faces through the shimmer, some satisfied, some uncomfortable, all complicit. My father finally looked at me, and I saw something flicker in his eyes. Regret? Shame? Too little, too late. The fire crept closer, and I closed my eyes. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't give them that satisfaction. Moon goddess, if you're real, if any of this means anything, let it be quick. The heat intensified. I could feel my skin beginning to blister, my clothes starting to smoke. The silver rope burned into my wrists. I bit my lip until I tasted blood, determined to stay silent. Then the wind changed. It came from the north, sudden and fierce, carrying the scent of pine and snow and something wild. The flames guttered, bending away from me as if pushed by an invisible hand. The crowd murmured, confused. What's happening? Someone shouted. The wind grew stronger, howling through the clearing like a living thing. And then I heard it. The sound that made my blood freeze and my heart race simultaneously. A howl. Not the howl of my pack, the familiar voices I'd grown up hearing. This was different. Ancient. Powerful. It resonated in my chest like a second heartbeat, and for the first time in my life, I felt something stir beneath my skin, something that wanted to answer. The flames parted completely now, creating a corridor through the pyre. Through the gap, I saw him. He stood at the edge of the clearing, a man carved from shadows and moonlight. tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell to his shoulders and eyes that gleamed silver in the firelight. He wore black, simple clothes that marked him as a traveler, but there was nothing simple about the way the pack instinctively backed away from him. Alpha. Not just any alpha. The power radiating from him made Marcus look like a puppy playing at dominance. Who dares interrupt pack justice? Cassius demanded, but his voice shook. The stranger walked forward, and the flames parted for him like water. He didn't rush, didn't run. Each step was deliberate, controlled, the movement of a predator who knew he was the apex. He stopped in front of me, and our eyes met. The world tilted. I felt it then. The snap of something slotting into place, a cord pulling taut between us. His pupils dilated and a low growl rumbled from his chest. Recognition, shock, something deeper that I had no name for. Mine, he said, the single word vibrating with power. Then he reached up and tore the silver collar from my throat like it was paper. The pack erupted into chaos. Marcus shifted, his wolf form lunging forward with a snarl of rage. But the stranger simply raised one hand, and Marcus froze mid-leap, suspended in the air by invisible force. "This woman is under my protection," the stranger announced, his voice carrying to every corner of the clearing. "She bears the scent of a true mate bond. Your trial is a farce, and your alpha is a coward who preys on the vulnerable." He released Marcus, who dropped to the ground and immediately submitted, belly up and whining. The stranger turned back to me, and his expression softened. Up close I could see the scars on his knuckles, the weariness in his eyes, the way his jaw clenched as if he was fighting some internal battle. "Can you walk?" he asked quietly. I nodded, not trusting my voice. He broke my chains with his bare hands and caught me when my legs gave out. The moment his skin touched mine, that strange feeling intensified, warmth spreading through my chest, my breath synchronizing with his. "Who are you?" I whispered. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Someone who's been looking for you for a very long time, Nora Ashwood." He knew my name. This stranger, this impossible man who'd walked through fire to reach me, knew who I was. "And you're coming with me," he continued, lifting me into his arms as easily as if I weighed nothing. "Before your pack does something even more stupid." I should have protested, should have questioned, but as he carried me away from the flames, from my father's guilty face, and Marcus's impotent rage, all I could think was that his heartbeat matched mine perfectly, and that terrified me more than the fire ever had. Chapter 2. The Stranger's Shadow. The world blurred past in streaks of darkness and silver moonlight. He ran, not as a wolf, but as a man. And yet he moved faster than any shifter I'd ever seen. The forest became a tunnel of shadows, branches whipping past so close I could feel the wind of their passage against my face. I buried my head against his chest, my burned wrists throbbing with each heartbeat, my mind struggling to process what had just happened. A stranger had walked into my execution and claimed me as his mine. That single word still echoed in my bones, ran for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Finally he slowed, his breathing barely elevated despite the impossible pace. We emerged into a small clearing where a black motorcycle waited, hidden beneath a camouflage tarp. He set me down carefully, his hands lingering on my waist a moment longer than necessary. "Can you hold on? We need to put more distance between us and your pack." I swayed, my legs weak from shock and pain. I don't understand what's happening." "I know." His voice was gentler than I expected, a rough velvet that made something in my chest ache. "But explanations will have to wait. They'll send hunters after us once Marcus recovers his pride." "Who are you?" He studied me for a long moment, silver eyes searching my face as if memorizing every detail. In the moonlight, I could see him clearly now. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw darkened with stubble, a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile. He was beautiful in a dangerous, untamed way that made my pulse skip. "My name is Kael," he said finally. "Kael Thorne." The name meant nothing to me, but the way he said it, like it carried weight, like it was both a confession and a warning, made me shiver. And you just happened to be passing through during my execution? Something flickered across his face. Guilt? Pain? It vanished before I could name it. No, I came looking for you specifically. My breath caught. Why? Later. He moved to the motorcycle, pulling a leather jacket from the storage compartment. Put this on. It's going to be a cold ride. I didn't move. I'm not going anywhere with you until you tell me what's happening. How did you know my name? Why did you say I was yours? What did you mean about a true mate bond? Kael's jaw clenched. Nora, don't. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly aware of how my clothes hung in burned tatters, how vulnerable I was. I just escaped one alpha who thought he owned me. I won't trade him for another. The words hung between us, sharp and accusing. For a heartbeat, I thought he might get angry. Instead, his expression crumbled into something raw and honest. You're right, he said quietly. I'm handling this badly. He dragged a hand through his hair, a gesture of frustration that seemed foreign to his controlled demeanor. I've been searching for 2 years. When I finally found you, when I saw you in those flames. His hands clenched into fists, and I heard his knuckles crack. I'm not trying to own you. I'm trying to save you from what? From what I am. The cryptic answer should have frustrated me, but the pain in his voice stopped my retort. This man, this Kael Thorne, was as much a mystery to himself as he was to me. A howl split the night, distant but clear. My pack. Hunting. Please, Kael said, and the single word sounded like it cost him everything. Trust me for one night. Get to safety with me. If you want to leave in the morning, I won't stop you. I looked into his eyes. Those strange, silver eyes that seemed to see straight through me and made a choice that would change everything. One night, I agreed. Relief flooded his features. He helped me into the jacket, his touch careful around my burned wrists. The leather was warm from being stored, and it smelled like him, pine and smoke and something darker, wilder. He straddled the motorcycle and offered me his hand. I climbed on behind him, my body pressing against his back. The moment we touched, that feeling from before intensified. The sense of rightness, of two pieces clicking together. I felt him tense, knew he felt it too. Hold tight, he murmured. I wrapped my arms around his waist and he gunned the engine. We shot forward into the night, leaving the Ashwood Pack's territory behind. We rode for 3 hours, winding through back roads and dense forest paths that barely qualified as trails. My body ached, my burns screamed with every bump, but I didn't complain. Behind me I could hear the occasional howl growing fainter, the hunters losing our trail. Finally, as the moon began to sink toward the horizon, Kael turned onto a narrow dirt road that led to a cabin half hidden in the trees. It was small, rustic, with darkened windows and an overgrown yard that suggested no one had lived there in years. He killed the engine, and the sudden silence was deafening. Safe house, he explained, helping me off the bike. My legs nearly gave out again, and his arms snaked around my waist, supporting me. No one knows about this place. You have a lot of secrets, I murmured. More than you can imagine. He unlocked the door and guided me inside. The cabin was sparse but clean. A main room with a kitchenette, a worn couch, and a stone fireplace. A single door led to what I assumed was a bedroom. Kael settled me on the couch and immediately began building a fire. His movements were efficient, practiced. Within minutes, flames crackled in the hearth, casting dancing shadows across the walls. First aid kit is in the bathroom, he said, disappearing through the bedroom door. He returned with a metal box and a bowl of water. Let me see your wrists. I hesitated, then extended my arms. The silver rope had left angry red welts, the skin blistered and raw. He knelt before me, and his hands, those strong, scarred hands, were impossibly gentle as he cleaned the wounds. Silver poisoning, he murmured. Your pack really wanted you to suffer. They wanted me to die. His hands stilled. They'll answer for that. The quiet menace in his voice should have frightened me. Instead, it made me feel protected, safe. Things I hadn't felt in a very long time. Why me? I whispered. Why were you searching for me? Kael applied salve to my burns, his touch feather-light. Because 2 years ago I had a vision during a blood moon, I saw a woman with fire in her hair and steel in her eyes, standing at the center of flames. I saw her call to a wolf that had been lost for centuries. He finally looked up, his silver eyes meeting mine. I saw you, Nora, and I knew that finding you was either my salvation or my destruction. Chapter 3. Revelations in Firelight. The salve tingled against my burned skin, but it was nothing compared to the electricity sparking where Kael's fingers brushed my wrists. He wrapped clean bandages around the wounds with meticulous care, his dark head bent in concentration. A vision, I repeated, trying to make sense of his words. You're saying you're some kind of seer? Not exactly. He secured the bandage with a small clip, then sat back on his heels. The firelight played across his features, highlighting the sharp angles of his face and the weariness that seemed carved into his bones. Among my kind, the blood moon reveals truths, destinies, warnings. Your kind. I pulled my hands back into my lap, suddenly aware of how close we were. You're not just an alpha, are you? His laugh was bitter. No, I'm not just anything. He rose and moved to the kitchen, pulling out a kettle and filling it with water. His movements were controlled, deliberate, like a man who'd spent a lifetime keeping himself on a tight leash. There's tea in the cupboard, he said, and some canned soup. You should eat something. I'm not hungry. My stomach was a knot of confusion and adrenaline. I want answers, Kael. You said you'd explain. He set the kettle on a small camping stove and turned to face me. In the confined space of the cabin, he seemed larger than life, a presence that filled every corner, made the air feel thick and charged. What do you know about the old bloodlines? He asked. I frowned. The royal packs? They died out centuries ago. Everyone knows that. Not everyone. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. The royal bloodlines didn't die out. They went into hiding. When the Great War fractured the pack territories, the original ruling families chose exile over watching their people destroy each other. My heart began to race. That's just legend. Stories we tell pups, is it? His eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. Not the normal amber of a shifter's wolf, but pure silver. Tell me, Nora, have you ever seen an alpha walk through fire? Have you ever felt power like mine in your pack? I hadn't. Even Marcus, with all his cruelty and ambition, had been nothing compared to the raw force that radiated from Kael Thorne. You're saying you're... I couldn't finish the sentence. It was too impossible. My full name is Kael Thorne of the House of Silvercrest. I am, or was, the last heir to the Northern Throne. His voice was flat, emotionless, as if he was reciting facts about a stranger. When I was 20, my entire family was slaughtered by rogues. I was away, learning to control my power from an elder in the mountains. By the time I returned, there was nothing left but ash and blood. The pain in his words hit me like a physical blow. Kael, I spent the next decade hunting down everyone responsible, he continued, pushing off the counter to pace the small room. I became what they were, a monster. I killed without mercy, without hesitation, and when the last one finally died, he stopped, his back to me. I realized I had nothing left. No pack, no family, no purpose. Just power I didn't want and blood on my hands that would never wash clean. The kettle began to whistle. He ignored it. I stood, my legs unsteady, and moved to turn off the stove. The small domestic act seemed absurd given the weight of what he'd just revealed, but it gave me a moment to think. What does this have to do with me? I asked quietly. He turned, and the expression on his face made my breath catch. Hunger, longing, fear, all wrapped together in a look so intense I had to fight the urge to step back. The blood moon vision showed me more than just your face, he said. It showed me what you are, Nora, what you've always been, even if you never knew it. I'm nothing, I whispered. A wolfless omega. That's why your pack are fools. He crossed the distance between us in 3 strides, stopping just inches away. You're not wolfless. You're dormant. I shook my head. That's not possible. I'm 23 years old. If I had a wolf, she would have emerged by now. Not if she was locked away. His hand lifted, hovering near my face but not quite touching. The Ashwood line is descended from the House of Moonvale, another royal bloodline that went into hiding. But they hid too well. They suppressed their power. bred it out over generations until their descendants forgot what they were. The room tilted. You're saying I'm... What? Royalty? I'm saying you carry the blood of moon-blessed wolves, the rarest, most powerful shifters ever born. His hand finally made contact, his fingers ghosting along my jaw. The touch sent shivers racing down my spine. That's why Marcus wanted you. Somehow he sensed what you were, even if he didn't understand it. If he'd completed the bond, he would have drained your power to fuel his own ambitions. But I can't shift. Because your wolf is locked behind walls built by fear and suppression. Your ancestors bound their wolves to survive in a world that had turned against them. That binding passed down through bloodlines. His thumb traced my cheekbone and I couldn't breathe. But the blood moon showed me something else. It showed me that I could break those walls. That together we could... He stopped abruptly, his hand falling away. He stepped back, putting distance between us. That's why I came for you, he finished, his voice rough. You're the key to restoring what was lost. The royal bloodlines, the true pack structures. With your power awakened and combined with mine, we could reunite the territories, end the wars between packs. Understanding crashed over me like cold water. You don't want me. You want what I represent? No. The word was fierce, almost desperate. That's what I thought I wanted when I started searching. But then I saw you tonight, chained and burning, and all I could think was that I'd rather watch the world burn than lose you. The raw honesty in his voice made my chest ache. You don't even know me. I know you refused a false bond, even knowing it would cost you everything. I know you didn't scream in those flames. I know, his jaw clenched. I know that when our eyes met, I felt something I thought died with my family. Hope. The word hung between us, fragile and terrifying. Outside, the first hints of dawn began to lighten the sky. We'd made it through the night. I'd survived, but as I looked at Kael Thorne, this broken, powerful man who'd walked through fire to save me, I realized survival might be the least of my problems, because despite every logical reason not to, despite the secrets and the destiny and the impossible claims about bloodlines and power, I was starting to trust him. Chapter 4. The Wolf. Within dawn broke soft and golden through the cabin windows, painting everything in shades of amber and rose. I hadn't slept. Neither had Kael. We'd spent the hours in careful orbit around each other. Him stoking the fire, making tea I didn't drink, checking the perimeter through windows dark with pre-dawn shadows. Me curled on the couch, processing revelations that should have been impossible, but felt too real to dismiss. Royal bloodlines. Dormant wolves, destiny written in blood moons, and underneath it all, the constant awareness of him. Every time he moved, every breath he took, something inside me responded, a tuning fork struck by a frequency only he could produce. You should rest, Kael said, breaking the silence. He stood by the window, silhouetted against the rising sun. You're safe here. Safe. I tested the word, found it strange on my tongue. I'm not sure I remember what that feels like. He turned, his expression softening. When did you lose it? That feeling. The question was so unexpected, so gentle that I answered honestly. When my mother died, I was 12. She was the only one who ever made me feel like I mattered. I picked at the bandages on my wrists. After she was gone, I was just tolerated, an obligation. My father remarried within a year to a woman with strong wolf bloodlines. I think he hoped she'd fix whatever was broken in me. Nothing is broken in you. The certainty in his voice made my throat tight. You can't know that, can I? He moved closer, settling into the chair across from me. The firelight caught the silver in his eyes, making them almost luminous. I can feel your energy, Nora. It's like standing next to a star that doesn't know it's burning. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe I was more than the worthless omega my pack had tried to burn away. But a lifetime of rejection wasn't erased by pretty words. You said you could awaken my wolf, I said, changing the subject to something concrete, something I could understand. How? Kael's expression grew guarded. It's complicated. Everything about this situation is complicated. Try me. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his gaze intense. The binding that suppressed your bloodline is ancient magic. To break it, You'd need a catalyst, something powerful enough to shatter generations of accumulated barriers. And you're that catalyst? Potentially. He ran a hand through his dark hair, a gesture I was beginning to recognize as his tell when he was uncomfortable. Royal bloodlines can recognize each other, call to each other. The blood moon showed me that my power could unlock yours, but what? The process requires a profound connection, trust, vulnerability. His jaw clenched. Things I'm not particularly good at. I almost laughed, says the man who just told me his entire tragic backstory. That's different. Those are just facts, history. This would be... He struggled for words. It would mean opening ourselves completely. No walls, no shields. I would have to reach inside you and tear down every defense your ancestors built. And you'd have to let me. The intimacy of what he was describing made my skin flush. How long would it take? I don't know. Days, maybe weeks. He met my eyes. And it might not work. The vision showed me possibility, not certainty. You could let me in, endure that vulnerability, and still remain dormant. But you want to try. He stopped himself, seeming to wrestle with the words. What I want doesn't matter. This has to be your choice, Nora. I meant what I said last night. If you want to leave, to disappear and start over somewhere far from pacts and politics, I'll help you do it. I studied him, this man who'd saved me, who claimed I was his salvation or destruction, who looked at me like I was something precious even as he offered to let me go. What happens if it works? I asked. If you awaken my wolf, what then? Then you'd have power. Real power. The kind that would make Marcus look like a gnat. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. You could go anywhere, do anything. No pack could force you into submission again. And you? What would you get out of it? The smile faded. Honestly, I don't know anymore. I started this quest thinking I needed you to rebuild the old order. But now... He stood abruptly, moving back to the window as if he needed distance. Now I just want you safe. Everything else is secondary. My heart hammered against my ribs. The smart thing would be to run, to thank him for the rescue, and disappear into the human world, where werewolves and destiny couldn't touch me. But when had I ever done the smart thing? I want to try, I heard myself say. Kael went very still. Nora, you're right. I've spent my entire life being told I was nothing, believing I was broken. I stood, wrapping his leather jacket tighter around myself. If there's even a chance that I'm more than that, I have to know. I have to try. He turned, and the expression on his face was equal parts relief and dread. This won't be easy. You'll have to face every fear, every trauma your bloodline buried. The pain of awakening will be worth it. I crossed to him, surprising myself with my boldness. I survived Marcus. I survived the flames. I can survive this? We stood inches apart, the air between us crackling with tension. Up close, I could see the flecks of darker silver in his eyes, the faint scar cutting through his left eyebrow, the way his chest rose and fell with carefully controlled breaths. When do we start? I whispered. Not yet. His hand lifted, hovering near my face like he was afraid to touch me. First, you need rest, real rest. Your body is still recovering from the burns, the silver poisoning. And... He hesitated. I need to prepare. There are rituals, protections that must be in place. If we do this wrong, it could kill you. The gravity of what I was agreeing to suddenly felt very real. How long? 3 days. Maybe 4. His hand finally made contact, cupping my cheek with infinite gentleness. Use that time to be sure, Nora, because once we begin, there's no going back. You'll never be the same person again. I leaned into his touch, something inside me settling at the contact. Maybe I don't want to be. His thumb traced my cheekbone, and for a heartbeat I thought he might kiss me. Wanted him to, but he pulled away, putting careful distance between us once more. Get some sleep, he said, his voice rough. I'll keep watch. I wanted to argue, but exhaustion was catching up to me. The adrenaline that had kept me upright was fading, leaving only bone-deep weariness. I moved to the bedroom, pausing at the door. Kael, thank you, for giving me a choice. He stood silhouetted against the window, a guardian carved from shadow and steel. Always, he said quietly. With me, you'll always have a choice. I closed the door and collapsed onto the bed, still wrapped in his jacket. As sleep finally claimed me, I could have sworn I heard a voice. Feminine, ancient, and achingly familiar. Whisper in my mind. Finally. You're finally ready to remember who you are. Chapter 5. Shadows of the Past. I woke to the smell of coffee and something cooking. Eggs, maybe bacon. For a disoriented moment, I thought I was home, that my mother would call me down to breakfast any second. Then reality crashed back. The cabin, Kael, everything that had happened. I sat up slowly, my body aching in new and creative ways. The burns on my wrists throbbed beneath their bandages, but the pain was duller now, manageable. Through the bedroom window, I could see it was late afternoon. I'd slept for hours. That voice from my dreams lingered in my mind. Finally. You're finally ready to remember who you are. It had felt so real, so present, like someone had been standing beside my bed, whispering secrets I'd forgotten I knew. I found Kael in the kitchen, cooking with the same focused intensity he seemed to bring to everything. He'd changed clothes, dark jeans and a gray Henley that clung to his broad shoulders. His hair was damp, suggesting he'd showered while I slept. "Good morning," he said without turning. "Or afternoon, technically. You were exhausted. You should have woken me. You need rest, too." I slept. He plated the food and turned, offering me a small smile. "A few hours. I'm used to operating on less." I took the plate, scrambled eggs, bacon, and toast that looked shockingly normal given the circumstances. We settled at the small table by the window, and for a few minutes, we just ate in comfortable silence. "Tell me about your family," I said finally. "Before, what were they like?" Kael's fork paused halfway to his mouth. He set it down slowly, his expression unreadable. "Why?" "Because you know everything about me. My pack, my past, even things I didn't know about myself. But you're still a mystery." I met his eyes. "If we're going to do this awakening thing, if I'm going to trust you that completely, I need to know who you are." He was quiet for so long I thought he might refuse. Then he leaned back in his chair, his gaze distant. My father was strong but fair. He believed in the old ways, that a true alpha serves his pack, not the other way around. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "He used to take me hunting in the mountains. Not for prey, but just to run. He'd say that a wolf who forgets how to run for joy becomes a wolf who only knows how to chase." The image made my chest ache. "He sounds wonderful." He was. My mother was his balance, all fire and passion where he was steady and calm. She laughed constantly, sang old songs in a language even she didn't fully understand anymore. His voice grew softer. "She was the one who taught me about the blood moon visions. Her grandmother had been a seer, though the gift had skipped a generation. When I started having dreams at 16, she knew what they meant. Did she see your future? Only pieces. She knew I'd face great darkness. She didn't know—" His jaw clenched. "She didn't know she'd be part of it." I reached across the table, covering his hand with mine. The contact sent that now familiar spark through my skin, but I didn't pull away. "You couldn't have saved them, Kael. You weren't there." "Exactly. I wasn't there." His hand turned, gripping mine almost desperately. "I was off playing student to some ancient elder who claimed he could teach me to control visions I didn't want. Meanwhile, rogues were planning their attack, and my family was alone." "Who led the attack?" His expression darkened. "A wolf named Darius Blackthorne, former general of my father's army, dismissed for brutality. He wanted the throne, believed royal blood was wasted on wolves who showed mercy." He released my hand, standing to pace. He gathered every discontented, power-hungry wolf he could find. They waited until I was gone, then struck during a new moon when our power was weakest. And you hunted them all down. Every single one. It took me 8 years. He stopped at the window, his reflection ghostly in the glass. By the end, I was exactly what Darius had accused my father of being too soft to become, a killer without hesitation or mercy. I stood and moved to him, seeing not the dangerous predator who'd walked through flames, but the man who still carried the weight of every death. "You survived. You did what you had to do. Did I?" He turned, and his eyes were haunted. Or did I just become another monster? After Darius died, I kept going, hunting rogues, eliminating threats to territories I no longer ruled. I told myself I was protecting innocent wolves, but really... He stopped, looking away. Really, I was just trying to drown in blood the part of me that knew I'd failed the people who mattered most. Until the blood moon vision. Until you. He faced me fully, and the intensity in his gaze stole my breath. 2 years ago, I was ready to end it. Walk into the sun and let everything finally be over. Then I saw you in that vision, burning but unbroken, calling to something I thought had died. And for the first time in a decade, I felt something other than rage or emptiness. What did you feel? He stepped closer, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. Purpose, fear, hope. His hand lifted, fingers threading through my hair. Want? The word hung between us, heavy with implication. My heart raced, my skin flushing with heat that had nothing to do with the fire crackling in the hearth. Kael, I know. He pulled back, though it seemed to cost him. Too fast, too much. I'm not good at this, at being around someone who makes me feel things again. I caught his hand before he could retreat entirely. Maybe that's a good thing, feeling again, or dangerous. But he didn't pull away. The bond between us, whatever it is, it's strong, Nora. Stronger than anything I've experienced. If we go through with the awakening, it will only intensify. You need to understand that. What exactly are you saying? He looked at our joined hands, then back to my face. I'm saying that breaking down your barriers means I'll be inside your mind, your soul. And you'll be inside mine. Every memory, every fear, every buried wound. We'll see it all in each other. The vulnerability of that was staggering. That's what you meant about trust. Yes, and it means... He took a shaky breath. It means you'll see every terrible thing I've done, every life I've taken. You'll feel the darkness in me, Nora. And once you do, you might not be able to look at me the same way. I understood then. He wasn't afraid of the process failing. He was afraid it would succeed, and I would see the monster he believed himself to be and run. I stepped closer, closing the distance he'd tried to create. Then I guess you'll have to trust me too. Trust that I'm strong enough to see all of you and not break. His free hand came up to cup my face. You're either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. Maybe both. I smiled despite the fear coursing through me. When do we start? Tomorrow night. The waxing moon will give us strength. His thumb traced my lower lip and I shivered. Until then, I need to gather supplies. Herbs for the ritual, wards to protect the cabin. You should rest more. Build your strength. Will you tell me what to expect? Some of it, but much of the awakening is instinctual. You'll have to trust your body. Let it guide you. His expression grew serious. And Nora, when it begins, it will hurt. Not physically. Your ancestors didn't build those walls with pain. They built them with fear. You'll have to face every fear that's been buried in your bloodline for generations. I swallowed hard. What if I can't? Then I'll be there to pull you back. He pressed his forehead to mine, his breath warm against my lips. I won't let you get lost, I promise. In that moment, wrapped in his warmth and his certainty, I almost believed him. Almost. Chapter 6. Preparation and Promises. Kael left at dusk, disappearing into the forest with a backpack and a promise to return before midnight. I watched from the window until the shadows swallowed him whole, feeling his absence like a physical ache. The bond between us was growing stronger. I could feel it threading through my chest, a golden cord that pulled taut whenever he moved too far away. It should have terrified me. This inexplicable connection to a man I'd known for barely a day. Instead, it felt like coming home. I spent the evening exploring the cabin more thoroughly. It was sparse but well-maintained, suggesting Kael visited regularly. In the bedroom, I found a trunk containing men's clothes, supplies, and, surprisingly, books. Old leather-bound volumes with titles in languages I couldn't read. And a few in English. The history of the royal pacts, moon magic and blood rites, the lost art of true bonding. I pulled out the last one, settling onto the bed with it. The pages were yellowed with age, the ink faded but still legible. I flipped through chapters on mate bonds, pack hierarchies, and ancient ceremonies until I found a section that made my breath catch. On the awakening of dormant wolves. When a bloodline has been suppressed through generations of fear or necessity, the wolf spirit retreats into the deepest chambers of the soul. It does not die, but sleeps, waiting for the moment when awakening becomes possible. To wake such a wolf requires a catalyst of tremendous power and unwavering trust. The awakener must be able to walk the corridors of the dormant one's soul, confronting the accumulated fears and traumas that built the prison. This journey is perilous for both parties. For the dormant one, it means facing every terror their ancestors fled from. The pain of centuries of suppression compressed into hours or days. Many do not survive the psychological toll. For the awakener, it means opening themselves completely, becoming vulnerable to the very soul they seek to heal. If the dormant one's wolf rejects the awakener, or if trust fractures during the process, the backlash can shatter the awakener's mind beyond repair. Therefore, such awakenings are only attempted between true mates, those whose souls recognize each other across lifetimes, whose bonds transcend the physical world. My hands trembled as I set the book aside. True mates. Kael hadn't used that term, had carefully talked around it, but the implications were clear. The door opened and I jumped. Kael stood in the doorway, his arms full of bundles wrapped in cloth. His eyes went immediately to the book on the bed, and something flickered across his face. "You've been reading," he said quietly. "You have quite the library." I stood, gesturing to the bundles. "What did you find?" He set everything on the table and began unwrapping them. White sage for cleansing, moonstone and obsidian for grounding, yarrow and mugwort for opening the pathways between consciousness and spirit. He glanced at me, and a few things I'd rather not explain unless you ask directly. I moved to the table, examining the collection of herbs, crystals, and mysterious vials. "The book says this ritual is only performed between true mates." There it was, the question hanging in the air between us. Kyle's hands stilled over a bundle of dried herbs. "The book is correct. And you think we're—" I couldn't finish the sentence. He turned to face me fully. "I know we are. I felt it the moment our eyes met through those flames. The blood moon showed me your face, but it didn't prepare me for what it would feel like to actually find you." He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "It's like I've been walking through the world half-blind my entire life, and suddenly I can see color." My heart hammered against my ribs. "But we just met. True mates are supposed to be souls that recognize each other across lifetimes," he finished. I know how it sounds. Believe me, I've spent 2 years trying to rationalize it away, telling myself the vision was just symbolic, that what I felt was desperation or projection. He reached out, his fingers ghosting along my jaw. Then I touched you and I knew. This isn't something that can be explained or rationalized. It just is. I leaned into his touch, that golden chord in my chest humming with rightness. "I feel it too. This pull toward you. But Kael, I don't know how to be someone's mate. I don't know how to be anything other than the worthless omega my pack always told me I was. Then we'll figure it out together." His other hand came up to frame my face. "I don't know how to be a mate either, Nora. I've spent a decade being a weapon, a hunter, a ghost. The idea of being someone's partner, someone's—" He stopped, struggling with the word. "Someone's beloved. It terrifies me." The admission cracked something open in my chest. Here was this powerful, dangerous man, a king without a throne, confessing his fears like prayers. "What if I'm not strong enough?" I whispered. "What if I see your darkness tomorrow and I can't handle it?" "Then we'll deal with it." "But Nora," he leaned his forehead against mine, "you need to understand something. The darkness you'll see in me, it's nothing compared to what you'll have to face in yourself. The awakening will force you to confront every fear your bloodline buried, generations of terror, of running, of hiding what you were to survive." I know. I read that part. Reading about it and experiencing it are very different things. His grip on my face tightened slightly. "I need you to promise me something. When it gets too hard, when you want to run or hide or shut down, promise you'll fight. Promise you'll keep reaching for me, even when every instinct tells you to retreat." The intensity in his eyes told me this was more than just about the ritual. This was about us. about whether we were brave enough to try for something neither of us thought we deserved. "I promise," I said. "If you promise the same, when you see the mess I am inside, when you realize I'm not some powerful moon-blessed princess, but just a broken girl who—" He kissed me. It was soft, tentative, a question more than a claim. His lips moved against mine with careful reverence, like I was something precious that might shatter. The golden cord in my chest blazed to life, and I gasped against his mouth. He pulled back immediately. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have—" I grabbed his shirt and pulled him back. "Don't apologize." This kiss was different. Hungry, desperate, filled with all the emotions we'd been dancing around. His hands tangled in my hair, and mine fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer. The connection between us flared brilliant and overwhelming, like touching a live wire. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Kael rested his forehead against mine. "Tomorrow night changes everything," he murmured. "I know. There's no going back after this. Once your wolf awakens, once our souls have walked together through your deepest fears, we'll be bound in ways that transcend even a mating mark. Are you trying to scare me?" "I'm trying to make sure you understand what you're agreeing to." He pulled back enough to meet my eyes. "I will see every part of you, Nora, and you'll see every part of me. Every kill, every moment of rage, every time I chose vengeance over mercy. Can you live with that?" I thought about the book's warnings, about the magnitude of what we were attempting. Then I thought about spending the rest of my life wondering what if. Wondering if I could have been more than the worthless omega everyone believed me to be. "Yes," I said firmly. "Can you live with seeing a woman who let herself be pushed around for years? Who was too weak to stand up to Marcus until it was almost too late?" "You're not weak," his voice was fierce. "You survived. That takes a different kind of strength." Then we're agreed. "Tomorrow night, we do this. No more second-guessing." He nodded slowly, then pulled me into his arms. I wrapped myself around him, feeling his heartbeat against my cheek. Steady, strong, real. "Get some rest," he murmured into my hair. "Tomorrow you'll need all your strength." But neither of us moved. We stood there in the firelight, holding each other like we could make the world outside disappear if we just held on tight enough. Tomorrow would bring the ritual, the awakening, and whatever came after. Tonight, we had this moment, and for now that was enough. Chapter 7. The ritual begins. The day passed in a strange, suspended tension. Kael spent the morning preparing the main room, moving furniture to the edges and drawing intricate symbols on the wooden floor with white chalk, mixed with something that shimmered like crushed moonstone. I watched from the doorway, fascinated by the precision of his movements, the way ancient knowledge seemed to flow through his hands. "These are protection wards," he explained without looking up. "They'll contain the energy we generate and prevent outside interference. When your wolf begins to wake, she'll be volatile, dangerous even. These symbols will keep that power from tearing the cabin apart." "Comforting," I muttered. He glanced up, a hint of a smile on his lips. "I won't let anything happen to you. That's what the wards are really for, to protect you from the strength you don't yet know how to control. By afternoon, the floor was covered in interconnected circles and symbols that seemed to pulse with their own internal light. Kael had placed crystals at cardinal points: moonstone, obsidian, clear quartz, and something dark and red I didn't recognize. "Bloodstone," he said when he caught me staring. "For courage and strength. You'll need both tonight." As the sun began its descent, Kael built up the fire until the room was almost uncomfortably warm. He'd changed into simple black pants and nothing else, his torso bare and covered in scars I hadn't noticed before. Claw marks across his ribs, a bite mark on his shoulder, what looked like a burn across his lower back, each one a story, each one a reminder of what he'd survived. "The ritual works better with less physical barriers," he said, catching me looking. "Skin-to-skin contact helps the energy flow. You should—" He gestured vaguely at my clothes. "You can keep your undergarments, but the rest will interfere." Heat flooded my face, but I nodded. I'd been wearing the spare clothes he'd given me, a soft t-shirt and sweatpants, both too large. I turned away for privacy, and stripped down to my bra and underwear, painfully aware of my own body's imperfections. The burns on my wrists were healing but still visible. I was too thin from years of being last to eat in pack hierarchy, all sharp angles and pale skin. When I turned back, Kael's eyes had darkened to molten silver. "You're beautiful," he said simply. "I'm a mess. You're perfect." He held out his hand. "Come. We need to begin before the moon rises fully." I crossed to the center of the circle, feeling the cymbals seem to hum beneath my bare feet. Kael positioned me in the exact center, then knelt in front of me, his hands resting lightly on my hips. "We'll start with breathing," he said. "I need you to match your breath to mine. In through the nose, out through the mouth, slow and steady." I followed his instruction, watching the rise and fall of his chest, syncing my own rhythm to his. After several minutes, I felt myself beginning to relax, the nervousness fading into something calmer. "Good." His thumbs traced small circles on my hip bones. "Now I need you to close your eyes and focus inward. Visualize your consciousness as a building, something with many rooms." "Can you do that?" I closed my eyes and immediately saw it. Not a building, but a house. The house I'd grown up in before my mother died. Warm and safe and filled with light. "I see it," I whispered. "Describe it to me." I did, painting the picture with words. The blue door, the garden my mother had loved, the window seat where she'd read to me. As I spoke, I felt Kael's presence begin to shift, to expand. It was like he was leaning into my mind, his consciousness brushing against mine. "I'm going to enter now," he murmured. "You'll feel me as a presence, a warmth. Don't fight it. Let me in, Nora." The sensation was indescribable. One moment I was alone in my mind, and the next, I felt him. A steady, powerful presence that filled the empty spaces I hadn't known existed. It should have felt invasive, frightening. Instead, it felt like coming home. "I'm here." His voice echoed in my mind, not quite sound, more like thought made tangible. "Can you feel me?" "Yes," I thought back. "It's strange, but not bad." "Good. Now I need you to let me deeper. The house you're visualizing, that's just the surface of your consciousness. Your wolf, the suppressed parts of your bloodline, they're buried beneath. In the basement, the foundation, the dark places you've never explored." Fear spiked through me. "I don't want to go there." "I know." His physical hands squeezed my hips gently. "But that's where we need to go, and I'll be with you every step. You're not alone in this, remember?" I took a shaky breath and began to descend, not physically, but mentally. The warm, sunlit house began to darken. I found stairs leading down, old wooden steps that creaked beneath my mental feet. "Keep going," Kael encouraged. "I'm right behind you." The stairs seemed endless. With each step, the air grew colder, heavier. I could feel the weight of years pressing down. Not just my years, but generations. The accumulated fear and pain of ancestors I'd never known. Finally, I reached the bottom. A door stood before me, old and iron-bound with locks I couldn't name. Just looking at it made my chest tight with anxiety. This is it. Kael's presence wrapped around me like a cloak. Your wolf is beyond this door. So are all the reasons she was locked away. I can't, I thought, panic rising. Kael, I can't open it, you can. And you will, because you're stronger than every fear that's been buried here. His mental touch was gentle but firm. Reach for the door, Nora. I'll help you with the locks. I extended my mental hand toward the door, and the moment my consciousness made contact, the first lock began to glow. Not with light, but with memory. I was 7 years old, watching my mother shift into a beautiful silver wolf. I'd begged her to teach me, but she'd just shaken her head sadly. Some gifts skip generations, little one, she'd said. But her eyes had held a secret, and guilt. The lock clicked open. Good, Kael encouraged. There are more. Each one is a memory, a trauma, a moment when your bloodline chose safety over power. Face them, Nora. See them for what they are. The second lock glowed, and I was thrust into a memory that wasn't mine. A woman who looked like me but wasn't, running through a forest with a child in her arms. Behind her, flames and screams. The Great War. She was crying, begging the moon goddess to hide her daughter, to suppress the royal blood that made them targets. Please, the woman's voice echoed across time. Let her be normal. Let her be safe. Take her, wolf, if that's what it requires, the moon goddess had answered. The lock opened, and pain lanced through me. Grief for a great-great-grandmother I'd never known, who'd sacrificed so much to keep her daughter alive. Keep going. Kael's voice was strained now. He was feeling it too, the accumulated weight of generations. We're close. 3 more locks. 3 more memories of women choosing survival over power, safety over strength. Each one breaking my heart, each one making me understand why I'd grown up wolfless. They'd done it to protect me. All of them. Every generation making the same impossible choice. Finally, only 1 lock remained. This one didn't glow with memory. It pulsed with raw, primal fear. This is the final barrier, Kael said. The original suppression. The moment when royal blood was first hidden. Nora, this one is going to hurt. I'm ready, I lied. No, you're not. But we're doing it anyway. His presence surged forward, wrapping around me completely. Hold on to me. No matter what you see, hold on to me, and don't let go. I reached for the final lock, and the world exploded into fire and blood and screaming. Now, generate next chapter of the story, ensuring smooth continuity from the previous section. Continue the slow emotional buildup, deepen the bond between characters, and maintain suspense about the shifter's identity or secret. Keep the word count consistent and naturally. Chapter 8. Through Blood and Fire. The memory slammed into me with the force of a freight train. I was her, the first. The original Moonvale queen who'd hidden her bloodline. I could feel her body, her terror, her desperate love as she clutched her infant daughter to her chest. The throne room was burning. Bodies of royal guards littered the marble floor, their blood pooling in the cracks between stones. Outside, the sounds of war raged, packs turning on each other, the carefully maintained peace of centuries shattering in a single night of betrayal. They're coming for the heirs, her mate gasped, dying from wounds that would have killed a lesser wolf instantly. You have to run. Take Alara and run. I won't leave you. You must. He coughed blood. Our bloodline is what started this. They'll kill every royal child to end it. Hide her, my love. Make her invisible. Make her... His eyes widened with sudden, terrible understanding. The moon goddess. She spoke to me in my dreams. There's a way to suppress the royal mark, to hide it so deep that... An explosion cut off his words. The doors to the throne room splintered. The queen ran, her daughter wailing against her chest. Through servant passages, down into the catacombs beneath the palace. While behind her the sounds of slaughter grew closer. She could hear them calling for her, promising slow death for her treason, as if loving her mate, as if uniting the packs under one banner had been the crime rather than the solution. In the deepest chamber, she laid her daughter on an altar of moonstone and spoke words in a language older than memory. She called upon the moon goddess herself, offering everything, her power, her wolf, her very soul. If only her daughter would be spared. Hide her, she begged. Make her invisible to those who would harm her. Let her bloodline sleep until the day comes when the world is ready for royal wolves again. The moon goddess answered with silver fire that poured from the ceiling, wrapping around the infant. The child's cries stopped as ancient magic sank into her bones, her blood, her very DNA. It is done, the goddess's voice echoed. Your line will sleep, generation after generation, until the day a true king rises who is worthy of awakening them. Only then will the lock break. Only then will your sacrifice be undone. The queen collapsed, her wolf spirit torn from her body by the magnitude of the spell. She died there, on the cold stone floor, while her daughter slept peacefully, now just another wolfless child, indistinguishable from the humans that would raise her. The memory released me, and I gasped back into my own consciousness. I was on my hands and knees in the circle, shaking violently. Kael's arms wrapped around me from behind, his body curled protectively over mine. I've got you, he murmured against my hair. Breathe, Nora, just breathe. She sacrificed everything, I choked out. The queen, she gave up her wolf, her life, her soul to save her daughter. I know. I felt it too. His voice was raw with shared grief. That's the weight you've been carrying without knowing it. Generations of sacrifice, all building toward this moment. I understood now. The suppression hadn't been punishment or weakness. It had been the most powerful act of love imaginable, repeated by every mother down the line until it became so deeply embedded in our DNA that we forgot it was there at all. The final lock, I whispered. It's still there. I can feel it, because we haven't completed the awakening yet. Kael helped me sit up, turning me to face him. His eyes blazed silver in the firelight, and I could see the toll the memory had taken on him too. The moon goddess set a condition. Only a true king worthy of the bloodline could break the final seal. Nora, do you understand what that means? My breath caught. You. She was talking about you. He nodded slowly. The blood moon vision didn't show me a random dormant wolf. It showed me my mate, the woman whose bloodline could only be awakened by me. The last heir of the Northern Throne, the king who united the territories after his family's death. His hands framed my face. The goddess knew. Centuries ago, she knew that someday you and I would find each other. The magnitude of it was staggering. That's why it has to be you. Why no one else could do this. Yes. And that's why the final step. He paused, his expression conflicted. The final step requires me to claim you. Not just mentally, but physically. The mating mark. It's the key that will unlock everything. Heat flooded through me despite the gravity of the moment. You're saying we have to complete the bond? Yes. His thumbs traced my cheekbones. But Nora, I need you to understand something. This isn't just about the ritual. If I mark you, we're bound for life. Soul to soul, heart to heart. There's no undoing it. Even if you hate me after you see the rest of my darkness, even if you regret this choice, we'll be connected forever. I should have been terrified. Should have demanded time to think, to process, but that golden cord between us was singing now, thrumming with recognition and rightness. Show me, I said. What? Your darkness. Before we go any further, show me the worst of what you are. Let me see the monster you think will drive me away. Kael's expression shuddered. Nora, you've been inside my deepest fears. You've seen generations of my ancestors' trauma. It's only fair. I took his hands in mine. Show me, Kael. Show me the kills, the rage, the moments you're most ashamed of. If we're going to be bound forever, I want to see all of you first. For a long moment, he just stared at me. Then slowly he nodded. Close your eyes, he said quietly. And remember, you asked for this. I closed my eyes and felt him open himself completely. The barriers he'd kept carefully in place since we met dissolved, and I fell into his memories like falling into an abyss. I saw him at 22, standing in the ruins of his family's compound, staring at his mother's body with eyes that had gone dead and cold. Felt the moment his heart turned to stone, when grief calcified into something harder and infinitely more dangerous. I saw the first kill. A rogue who'd participated in the attack, begging for mercy. Kael had given none. The violence was efficient, brutal, final, then the second. The third, the 100th, years of hunting, of tracking, of dispensing justice that looked increasingly like vengeance. I felt his rage hot and consuming, driving him forward even as his soul screamed for him to stop. Saw the worst night when he'd cornered a group of rogues who'd been too young to participate in the original attack but had celebrated it afterward. They were barely adults, foolish and frightened. He'd killed them anyway, methodically, without hesitation. And afterward, sitting alone in the rain, he'd looked at his blood-stained hands and realized he'd become exactly what his father would have been ashamed of. That was the night he'd decided to end it, to walk into the sun and let everything be over. The memories released me, and I opened my eyes to find Kael watching me with an expression of carefully controlled dread. Well? His voice was flat, emotionless, the same tone I'd heard in the memories when he'd stopped feeling anything at all. Now you know what I am. I was crying, I realized. Tears streaming down my face for the boy who'd lost everything, for the man who'd drowned in blood trying to fill the void that loss had created. Kael, I whispered, then pulled him to me, crushing my lips against his. He froze, shocked. Then his control shattered. His arms banded around me, and he kissed me back with a desperation that bordered on violence. It was messy, raw, more battle than seduction. Two broken people trying to prove to each other that they weren't beyond redemption. When we finally broke apart, both gasping, his eyes were wild. "You saw," he said hoarsely. "You saw everything and you're still here. Still choosing this, still choosing you." I cupped his face, forcing him to hold my gaze. "Yes, you did terrible things. Yes, you let vengeance consume you. But Kael, you stopped. When you had nothing left to live for, you saw a vision of me, and you chose to keep going. You chose to try to be better. That doesn't erase. No, it doesn't. But it means you're not the monster you think you are. Monsters don't feel remorse. They don't spend 2 years searching for someone who might give them purpose beyond killing. They don't walk through fire to save a stranger." I pressed my forehead to his. "You're broken." "I'm broken. Maybe that's exactly why we fit." His breath shuddered out. "If we do this, if I mark you, there's no going back. I know. Your wolf will awaken with a force that might destroy us both. I know. And you're still sure?" I answered by kissing him again, pouring every ounce of certainty I possessed into the contact. His hands tangled in my hair, and I felt the exact moment he surrendered, when the careful control he'd maintained for a decade finally broke. "Then let's finish this," he growled against my lips. "Let's wake your wolf and damn the consequences." Chapter 9. The Awakening. Kael laid me down in the center of the circle with a reverence that made my breath catch. The symbols beneath us pulsed with silvery light, responding to the energy building between us. Outside I could hear the wind rising, as if the forest itself sensed what was about to happen. "The marking has to be done at the peak of connection," he murmured, his body hovering over mine. "When our souls are so intertwined that there's no separation between us. That's when your wolf will break free. How will we know when? We'll know." His lips traced down my jaw to my throat, and I shivered. "Trust me, when the moment comes, every cell in your body will be screaming for it." He kissed me slowly this time, thoroughly, as if he had all the time in the world. His hands explored with careful reverence, tracing my ribs, my hips, the curve of my waist. Each touch sent sparks racing across my skin, building into something larger, something that felt almost cosmic. I touched him back, mapping the scars that covered his torso, each one a story I now understood. The claw marks from the rogue who'd nearly killed him in Prague, the burn from a fire he'd walked through to save a pack of innocents, the bite mark from Darius himself, taken in their final battle. "You're beautiful," I whispered against his collarbone. "Every broken piece of you," he groaned, and I felt his control slip another notch. The golden cord between us was blazing now, almost painfully bright. I could feel his emotions bleeding into mine. Desire, yes, but also fear, hope, and a desperate need to prove he could be worthy of this. "You are," I thought at him. "You're worthy, Kael. You always were." His eyes snapped to mine, silvery and wild. "You're in my head. You've been in mine all night." "Seems only fair." A hint of a smile touched his lips. "Fair. Right." Then his expression grew serious. "Nora, once we start, I won't be able to stop. The bond will drive us both. If you have any doubts," I pulled him down to me, silencing his words with a kiss. "No doubts. Not anymore." That was all the permission he needed. The world narrowed to sensation and connection. His hands on my skin, my fingers in his hair. The way our bodies fit together like pieces of a puzzle finally finding their place. But it was more than just physical. With every touch, every kiss, I felt our consciousness spiraling together. I saw flashes of his memories overlaid with my own. His mother's laughter mixing with mine, the loneliness he'd felt all these years echoing my own isolation, the hope that had died with his family mirroring the hope I'd buried when my mother passed. We were the same. Two souls fractured by loss, by violence, by years of believing we didn't deserve happiness. And now we were trying to make ourselves whole by fitting our broken edges together. "This is it," Kael's voice echoed in my mind. "Can you feel it?" "The door is opening." He was right. Deep inside me, I felt something shifting. The final lock on that iron door beginning to glow, beginning to dissolve. Behind it, something ancient and powerful was stirring. My wolf. She was waking up. The sensation was overwhelming. Power flooded through my veins like liquid fire, and I gasped against Kael's shoulder. My back arched involuntarily as centuries of suppressed instinct suddenly burst free. "Easy," Kael soothed, but I could hear the strain in his mental voice. "Let her come. Don't fight it." I wasn't fighting. I was drowning. Memories that weren't mine cascaded through my consciousness. Hundreds of women, my ancestors, all whispering at once. Queens and warriors, healers and seers, all of them carrying the bloodline that had been locked away for so long. And beneath their voices I heard her. My wolf, not a separate entity, but a part of me that had been sleeping my entire life. Finally, she breathed, her voice like silver bells. Finally, we're whole again, the power built to an unbearable crescendo. The symbols beneath us blazed with light so bright I could see it through my closed eyelids. The crystals at the cardinal points shattered simultaneously, unable to contain the energy. "Now," Kael growled, and his voice was no longer entirely human. "Nora, I need to mark you now." "Yes," I gasped. "Please, Kael, I need—" His teeth found the junction of my neck and shoulder, and the world exploded. Pain and pleasure crashed over me in waves too intense to separate. I felt his canines pierce my skin, felt the ancient magic in his bloodline connecting with the newly awakened power in mine. The golden cord between us didn't just tighten, it fused, becoming a permanent bridge between our souls. And then my wolf finally broke free. She erupted from the place where she'd been locked, roaring with the fury of centuries of imprisonment. Power flooded every cell of my body, rewriting my DNA, activating genes that had been dormant for generations. My bones ached with the need to shift, my muscles trembling with barely contained strength. "Not yet," Kael's voice cut through the chaos, his arms locked around me, holding me to the earth. "You're not ready to shift yet. You have to learn to control it first or you'll tear yourself apart." But my wolf didn't want control. She wanted freedom. She wanted to run, to hunt, to feel the moon on her fur after centuries of darkness. She pushed against my skin and I screamed with the pressure of it. "Kael, I can't hold her." "Yes, you can." He pulled back to look at me, his eyes blazing pure silver. "You're not separate from her, Nora. She's you. The part of yourself you've denied for your entire life. Don't fight her. Merge with her." I didn't understand what he meant until I stopped struggling. The moment I relaxed, the moment I stopped seeing my wolf as something foreign trying to claw its way out, everything clicked into place. She wasn't invading me. She was completing me. The power settled into my bones, my blood, my breath. It was still there, immense and ancient and overwhelming, but now it felt like a part of me rather than something trying to consume me. I took a shuddering breath and opened my eyes. The world had changed. Colors were more vivid, more intense. I could hear Kael's heartbeat, the crackle of the fire, the wind in the trees outside, as clearly as if they were right beside my ear. Scents flooded my nose, pine and smoke and earth, and underneath it all, the intoxicating smell of my mate. My mate. The word resonated through every cell of my body. The mark on my neck throbbed with a sweet ache, and I could feel Kael through it. His relief, his awe, his fierce protective love. "There you are," he murmured, brushing hair back from my face. "Hello, Your Majesty," I blinked at him. "What?" "You're glowing." He traced the mark on my neck and pleasure rippled through me. "Silver like moonlight. It's the royal bloodline manifesting. You're not just a moon-blessed wolf anymore, Nora. You're a queen. The last daughter of House Moonvale, returned to the world after 3 centuries. I looked down at my hands and gasped. He was right. My skin was emanating a soft silver glow, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. It was beautiful and terrifying and completely impossible. "What does this mean?" I whispered. Kael's expression grew serious. "It means everything just got a lot more complicated. When word spreads that a royal bloodline has awakened, and it will spread, the moon herself broadcasts these things. Every pack in the territory will want to either claim you or kill you. That's not ominous at all. But," he continued, a hint of savage satisfaction in his voice, "they'll have to go through me first. And I've spent a decade proving I'm very, very hard to kill." He kissed me softly, and through the bond, I felt his absolute certainty he would protect me. Die for me if necessary. Kill for me, definitely. And the terrifying thing was, I felt the same about him. So what do we do now? I asked against his lips. Now? He pulled back, his eyes gleaming with something dangerous and determined. Now we finish what the old queen started. We take back what's rightfully ours. Together. Outside, the moon reached its peak, and somewhere in the forest, a wolf howled. Not my old pack, something else. Something that had sensed the surge of power and was coming to investigate. But first, Kael amended, his arms tightening around me, we teach you to shift, because I have a feeling we're going to need every advantage we can get. I nodded, feeling my wolf stir eagerly at the prospect. After centuries of sleep, she was ready to run, and so was I. Chapter 10. First shift and new threats. We dressed quickly, though my body still hummed with residual energy from the awakening. Every movement felt different now, stronger, more fluid, as if I'd been walking through water my entire life and had suddenly discovered air. The clothes Kael had given me felt constraining, my skin hypersensitive to every texture. It'll take time to adjust, Kael said, watching me tug at the shirt collar. Your senses are heightened now. Everything is more intense. That's an understatement. I could smell everything. The herbs he'd used for the ritual, the smoke from the fire, even the faint scent of rain on the wind miles away. How do you function like this? You learn to filter. Right now, your wolf is processing everything at once. Eventually, you'll be able to focus on what matters and let the rest fade to background noise. Another howl split the night, closer this time. Kael's posture shifted instantly, his body angling toward the door with predatory alertness. That's not a patrol, he said quietly. That's a tracking howl. Someone followed our trail. Fear spiked through me. My old pack? No, Marcus's wolves would be more cautious. This is... He tilted his head, listening to something I couldn't yet parse. This is a challenge. Someone sensed the power surge and wants to investigate. Or worse, wants to claim it. He moved to the weapons cache I hadn't noticed before. A trunk in the corner containing knives, a crossbow, and other things I didn't want to examine too closely. He strapped a blade to his thigh with practiced efficiency. I thought you said the wards would hide us, I said, trying to keep the tremor from my voice. They hide the cabin. But what we did tonight? He gestured to the still glowing symbols on the floor. That kind of power can't be completely contained. Every supernatural creature within 100 miles probably felt it. Most will stay away out of self-preservation. But there are always the ambitious ones, the ones who think they can steal power that doesn't belong to them. Another howl, and this time I heard what Kael had. The challenge in it, the aggressive intent. My wolf stirred restlessly, and I felt an answering growl build in my chest. Easy, Kael warned. Don't let her provoke you into shifting before you're ready. The first transformation is intense. If you lose control, you could hurt yourself. Then what do we do? His smile was cold and dangerous. We remind whoever's out there why challenging a king is a very bad idea. He held out his hand. Come on. You need to see what you're capable of now. I took his hand, and we stepped outside into the moonlit clearing. The forest was alive with sounds I'd never noticed before. Small creatures in the undergrowth, owls hunting overhead, the whisper of leaves in the wind. But underneath it all I heard them. Wolves. Multiple wolves, circling the cabin just beyond the tree line. How many? I whispered. 5. Maybe 6. Kael's eyes had gone full silver, reflecting the moonlight. They're trying to decide if we're worth the risk. And are we? He squeezed my hand. Let's find out. Nora, I need you to call your wolf forward. Not a full shift, just let her presence show. Royal wolves have an aura that others can sense. If they're smart, they'll recognize what you are and leave. And if they're not smart, then I'll handle it. The casual confidence in his voice should have been reassuring. Instead, it reminded me of the memories I'd seen. The efficient, brutal violence he was capable of. The man who'd spent a decade perfecting the art of killing. He's protecting us, my wolf murmured. Let me help. I took a breath and did what Kael had taught me during the ritual. I stopped fighting the power inside me and simply let it be. My wolf rose to the surface, not taking over but making herself known. The silver glow intensified, radiating from my skin like captured moonlight. The circling wolves went silent. Then, one by one, they emerged from the tree line. They were larger than normal wolves, shifters in their animal forms. The leader was massive, his fur black as midnight, his eyes amber and calculating. He stalked forward, head low, assessing us. "That's far enough," Kael said, his voice carrying the weight of command. "State your business or leave my territory." The black wolf's lips pulled back in a snarl, but he didn't advance further. After a tense moment, he shifted, bones cracking and reforming in a process that was both fascinating and horrifying to watch. Where the wolf had been, a man now stood. He was tall, heavily muscled, with graying hair and scars that suggested a long life of fighting. "Your territory?" The man's voice was gravel rough. "This land belongs to the Redwood Pack. We don't recognize your claim, stranger." "Then let me enlighten you." Kael stepped forward, and the temperature seemed to drop. "I am Kael Thorne of House Silvercrest, last heir to the Northern Throne. This land, and every territory within 500 miles, belongs to me, by right of blood and conquest." The man's eyes widened briefly, before narrowing with suspicion. "Silvercrest fell decades ago. If you're claiming that bloodline, prove it." Kael smiled, and it was terrifying. "As you wish." He shifted so fast I barely saw it happen. One moment he was a man, the next he was a wolf unlike any I'd ever seen. He was enormous, easily twice the size of the black wolf, with fur that seemed to absorb and reflect moonlight simultaneously. His eyes blazed pure silver, ancient and powerful. The other wolves immediately dropped into submission, bellies to the ground, throats exposed. Even the man who'd been standing took an involuntary step back. "That's my mate," my wolf purred with satisfaction. "That's our king," Kael shifted back, not even breathing hard. "Satisfied?" "My lord," the man said, his earlier bravado completely gone. He dropped to one knee. "Forgive me. We didn't know. When we felt the power surge, we thought..." "You thought you could investigate without consequence." "Understandable, if foolish." Kael's expression remained cold. "What's your name?" "Roman, beta of the Redwood Pack." "And where is your alpha, Roman?" The man's jaw tightened. "Dead, 3 months ago. Our territory has been in chaos since. Rogues keep pushing at our borders, and without strong leadership." He trailed off, clearly uncomfortable, admitting weakness. Kael exchanged a glance with me, and through the bond, I felt his thoughts. "This is it. This is how it starts. One pack at a time, we rebuild what was lost." "Return to your pack," Kael said. "Tell them that the old bloodlines have returned. Tell them that any pack who wishes for protection and proper leadership can petition for alliance. But also tell them this." His eyes flashed dangerously. "Anyone who comes for my mate with ill intent will learn why the royal houses ruled unchallenged for centuries." Roman's eyes flicked to me, widening as he truly saw the silver glow, the royal mark. "She's... blessed moon goddess. She's a queen." "House Moonvale," I heard myself say, my voice stronger than I'd ever heard it. "And yes, I am." The words felt right. Natural. Like I was remembering something I'd always known rather than claiming something new. Roman bowed deeply. "The Redwood Pack would be honored to offer alliance, your majesties. We've been without proper leadership for too long. If you would consider..." "We'll consider it," Kael interrupted. "But first we have other matters to attend to. There's a pack called Ashwood about 60 miles south. They attempted to execute my mate through illegal burning trial. I believe they require a lesson in proper justice." The savage satisfaction in his voice made me shiver. Through the bond, I felt his rage simmering just beneath the surface. Rage that had been carefully controlled while we dealt with Roman, but was now focused entirely on Marcus and my former pack. "They'll answer for what they tried to do to you," he said, turning to me. "Every single one of them who stood by and watched. Part of me wanted to protest, to say it wasn't necessary. But another part, the part that was newly awakened, that carried the strength of generations of queens, wanted them to face consequences. Wanted Marcus to understand that the Omega he'd tried to murder was now more powerful than he could ever dream of being. When? I asked. Soon. But first, you need to complete your first shift. You need to know what you're fully capable of before we walk back into that hell. He held out his hand again. Ready to meet your wolf, Nora? I looked at his outstretched hand, at the man who'd walked through fire for me, who'd opened his darkest memories and still chosen to love me, at the mate the moon goddess herself had destined for me across centuries. I'm ready, I said, taking his hand. Together, we walked back into the forest, leaving Roman and his wolves staring after us. The real journey was just beginning.